The responsibility is not only to reach the goals, because they pretend that they already reached the goals, the rich countries, and the responsibility is not only limited to provide the 0.7%, which was decided 40 years ago. So they have other responsibilities. And this was mentioned in a document that you contributed also to publish a few years ago on the goals for the rich. So what are the goals of it?
The goals for the rich, and the goals for the rich document that was a contribution to that discussion by a group of people to which you also contributed, which calls itself the Civil Society Reflection Group, is started to say the people that created a lot of the problems and that have the means, the capacities to face them, they have a first responsibility. And this is consistent with the concept that has already been agreed by the United Nations many years ago about the so-called common but differentiated responsibilities. We are all citizens of some country in this planet. We do share a common responsibility for the heritage of humankind. This is common, but it's not the same. We are not equally responsible, because some people that consume so little that they are not contributing to climate change, whereas others, of course, contribute enormously because they have 3 cars in their garage, and so they should do more. The problem is accumulated also, not such as precedent. They have to change their production and consumption patterns, whereas many of the poor people in the world need to consume more, not less, for example. So, but it's not only about the environment. It's also responsibility about a global system.
Yes, because this concept was mainly related to the agenda, to the Rio
process of the environment.
It seems that it's expanded now when we are talking about the Sustainable Development Agenda at large.
Exactly, because, for example, as part of this process and in this debate, last year the so-called Mbeki report by the former South African president that chaired the commission that produced that report was showing that every year some $50 billion are taken out of Africa in illicit financial flows, which is more than all the official development assistance, all the aid that goes into Africa. Now, this is the responsibility of some very rich Africans that are taking the money abroad, of the governments that do not contribute to that. A lot of that money comes from illicit trade in ivory or in diamonds or arms trade and so on. But 3/4 of those illicit outflows comes from very legitimate established corporations that just do not pay the taxes. Okay. And that money, where does it go? It goes to this cloud of offshore banking that apparently is nowhere, where no one is responsible, but corresponds to a very articulated financial system of a few big banks in the world that is mainly based in Switzerland, London, New York.
And this is similar to what is in Panama Papers.
Exactly. What the Panama Papers did was to just publish the secret proceeding of one law firm.
Okay. To give an example or a model of what's happening.
That became public. One law firm working over dozens of years, and there you see, from football stars to politicians to millionaires to corporations doing deals through this very few so-called tax haven or secrecy jurisdictions, basically aimed at avoiding taxes.
And this amount of capitals deriving from this tax avoidance and evasion or the tax havens is estimated to be much more or much bigger than the OTA or the development aid given.
Much more. Much more. So you wouldn't need any aid if that money wasn't flowing out.
Okay.
But the problem is that there is a whole structure system that allows that to happen and that to be transferred and so on. So you wouldn't steal anything if you cannot profit from what you steal.
So this is the system
so-
that is creating inequality basically,
Exactly.
as an inequality identified as to be the main challenge facing now in front of development and
Exactly.
preventing from
That's
And
precisely.
this is, by the way, it's not only, civil society or the progressive actors, even people from within the system, they are now mentioning inequality as a challenge, and they are also accusing this financial system to create this inequality.
That is why this important document, the 2030 Agenda, could get approved by consensus of 193 governments. All the governments of the world agreed to that. Why? Because now developed countries are facing economic crisis.
Okay.
You know, after the 2008 crisis created by that completely crazy financial system, all the governments are suffering, the voters are demanding solutions, unemployment is rampant in many developed countries, poverty is increasing, and then the public learns that a lot of the biggest corporations in the world are not paying any taxes.
And they don't want to acknowledge that behind this crisis in 2008, I recall the debate in financing for development just after the crisis and in many other venues, they don't want to acknowledge that behind this crisis there are systemic issues and reasons.
Well, everybody knows that there are systemic issues and reasons. There are, in a way, two problems there. If you look, the media talk very little about all the different police cases and justice deals against the bank owners. But the banks and some of the major brands that you see all around the world in terms of brand making in every airport and so on, have had to pay billions of dollars because they were caught cheating, because they were caught manipulating interest rates, like the LIBOR case, which means basically they committed a fraud against every person in the world that ever has a credit card. Because the interest that you pay on your credit card ultimately depends on the LIBOR rate. And they were fixing the rate in conversations among themselves and so on. The exchange rates between currencies, that fluctuates every day between the pound and the dollar and the euro and so on. Also, they were making deals with them to put it higher, to put it lower, depending on their own convenience. They had to pay billions of dollars in fines for that. And the crisis in 2008 itself. So they have not been taken to jail, which is one of the problems, because then the public would have identified. You don't see a criminal until they're actually put behind bars.
They were supported in order to bail out from the crisis.
Exactly. So people get mad because they were bailed out of the crisis, they were given enormous amount of money, which generated debt by the governments that gave that money, which now everybody's paying. And so the public is furious, and some measures are started to be taken, like, for example, now the European Commission telling Apple, you have to pay $13 billion of unpaid taxes to Ireland where they are registered. And it's a funny case, because the Irish government said, no, we don't want that money.
Yeah, because they are trying to create this tax haven in order to attract more investors.
Well, but that is a so-called race to the bottom.
Race to the bottom, yes. And in Ireland,
Which-
there is a crisis, and the crisis has an implication on the people's reality.
And they try to come out of the crisis saying, okay, we will attract these investors by offering them even better deals. So they come to us.
So without addressing the systemic issues.
But if you don't address the systemic issues, another country will say, okay, I will do the same of the Irish, I will lower them even more, and then even more, and you go in a race to the bottom where everybody gets damaged by it instead of raising the standards. And as a result, inequality increases to levels that the world has not known, probably since the time of the pharaohs. Because there has been a study published by Oxfam very recently showing that less than 100 people, I think 82 people, 82 persons, individuals, have a wealth which is higher than all of the rest of humanity. 7 billion people.
Lucky people.
Lucky people.
But
yes.
this is not because
I'd
they
like
are-
to be one of them.
No,
well,
that's-
we would all like to be one of them, but that's
it's not because they are smarter than others. It's because maybe they had the chance to use all these, let's say, mechanisms and instruments.
If we know how.
Okay.
No, that would be another story.
You have to know how,
But-
and there are an ethical side of it.
Yes, but basically there is a conscious political decision that was taken by the leaders in the world 20, 25, 30 years ago to let them get rid of getting richer and richer without paying taxes,
Okay.
in the hope that then that prosperity would spread or trickle down,
Okay,
which
this
is
is-
something that never happened.
This is great, and by the way, that's why Bernie Sanders in his campaign was addressing or accusing Wall Street because it's responsible of all this.